Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers. Welcome back to Muse and Measure. If you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button down there somewhere. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the songwriting process that I went through on my sabbatical year and how I went from having no songs to having 8 songs for a album. Okay. Now you might think, oh, 8 songs, that's not enough for a full album. Well, they're quite long songs, most of them. There's one that's 7 minutes long, and there's a couple that are 5 or 6 minutes long. So, as Lou Reed once said, nobody can be interesting for longer than a half an hour. I'm paraphrasing what he said. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but he said something like that. So, I think that albums often maybe are too long. So I was happy to do 35, 40-minute album because otherwise it bore people. Especially when it's just me. I have a band. But I do the singing and I do the songwriting. I wish that they would, hint, hint, guys, write me some songs. I want you to sing on them. But since it's primarily me, I just like, these videos are long enough. Oh my God, imagine if you had to listen to me ramble on for 35 minutes. After a while, you probably just, want to end it all. Anyways, so how did I go from having no songs to 8 songs? Okay. Well, there was all kinds of different paths, and they all led to a song, but some were easy, some were hard. It's not really advice that I'm gonna give. I'm just gonna tell you about what I did. The first song that I finished was called Tide Song, which I'll put a link to down below for the demo. That one was the hardest to finish because I wrote that from scratch, and as if you don't write a song from scratch, maybe you do. Well, when I say I wrote from scratch, meaning that I didn't even have a seed idea. I was just sitting down with a guitar and I just started writing, and I came up with a lick, and then I started singing over it, and then built it up through that. But it has so many different wacky little parts that my mind was really being a stickler for keeping it interesting throughout the whole song. And when you listen to the song, it morphs and changes so much over the course of 3.5 minutes that it's really a crazy journey that it goes on. So that was really, really time consuming to write. And also it was the beginning of my sabbatical where I had all this free time, and it would just sit at my table, my kitchen table, and just stare at this notebook for hours. So when I finished that, then I was like, okay, well, what other songs do I go to? So this is my little songwriting notebook, and as you can see, there's certain songs where I've done tons of writing on, and then there's songs that are just in their seed forms where they're just lyric ideas. Then of course on my phone, I have hundreds and hundreds of little hummings, whistlings, song ideas, and so I just combed through all that, and I do that every time that I'm like, okay, I want to write an album's worth of material. I basically make myself a playlist of all the contenders, of all the little ideas that are possibilities that I like. So I have to listen through them all and really kind of go, well, this one is pretty good. I think I could develop it. Or, yeah, no, I don't like this one anymore. Or it doesn't fit with the vibe of what I'm going for on this record. I had no idea what my vibe was going to be, though. And that's kind of why I gave it the title Fool's Leap of Faith, which the title didn't come till after it was done. But it was really about like, okay, I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Even though I've been writing songs for most of my life and been recording for most of my life, because all of a sudden I had all this free time, it kind of opened up the possibilities. It's like you're given the key to the kingdom and like, okay, what are you going to do now? And I had no idea what I was going to do. So it really was a leap of faith. So I tried a whole bunch of different ways. So I started with seeds and some songs, but I also just didn't want to rehash old material. I wanted it to really be a leap of faith, to really kind of push myself past what I'd done in the past. One thing I had done in the past, which I wanted to expand on, was improvisation. So just sitting down for 10 minutes a day and just seeing what came out. And I got 2 songs out of that, actually 3 songs from the album out of that. One is called Blood Brothers, and I'll just play a little bit of that. so you can see it. And then I just started improvising. So then I had the chord progression, so I just started singing over that. I'm molding in my shell. I'm burning, I'm never learning from this hell and all its booby traps with no life to spare. Gnaw my way out of the snare and then feel some new meat caressing my hand, and I'm falling again like the fool that I am. So that came out of an improv session. That's about, I got that part, and then I wrote a whole bunch of other lyrics in that improv session. And I got, another maybe a few verses out of it. But then when I took it to the actual songwriting and the polishing part of it, I was like, it can't just stay in this world. It has to keep expanding and going to different places. And so I took it to all different places. So really, the first half is all like written in improv. And then the second half is like this composed part where I really wrote a lot. And there's strings in that second part. So there's this whole elaborate string section in it. So that process really took a long time too, because it would have been great if I could just sit down and improv the whole song and have it be done, but no such luck. I had to go through and edit and find the good lines, to find the parts that were interesting musically, and really cut the fat out. So, I had 10 minutes of that song, so I cut it down, right now it's at 6 minutes, but I'd say I only got maybe 2 or 3 minutes out of the improv. So I did that with a couple other songs, which I'll do in subsequent videos, but that was definitely a big process. And this was the leap of faith that I did in this song, was that I finally allowed my love of improvisation to really inform my songwriting process in this, which I hadn't really done before. I maybe improv, to come up with some seeds, some different ideas, and then work with those in the songwriting process. But never had I actually used, whole improvisations or whole sections of improvisations to be the basis of songs. And that was really a brand new thing for me, and I really enjoyed it. And it really took me to some very interesting places, and I look forward to doing that again. So now, as part of my songwriting practice that I do every single night, is I'll do 5 to 10 minutes of improv. And, most nights, it's garbage, it's nothing worth using. But occasionally you'll just hit on something and it's like, wow, that really works. And it just needs a little bit of polishing, and then maybe you write other sections for it. But it's a really cool process, and it really reveals a lot. And you really have to do a leap of faith, because you're trusting your subconscious mind and your skills and your ear to take you to new places in your music that, are not prescribed, or something that you try out first and then you do it. When you know it's going to work, it's like you're just flying by the seat of your pants. So that was the biggest process for writing songs for this. Of course, I had a couple, I was worried about finishing up and putting my best foot forward for this record label. And so I was a little bit worried, so I had some safeties in the bank too, which were songs that were already written, mostly, that just needed, a bridge maybe. So I was able to finish up 1 or 2 songs that I had already started, so that those were ready for the record. So anyways, that's an overview of how I was able to finish these songs in that amount of time, which is becoming harder and harder. When I was like a little kid, I could pop out a song in an afternoon, but as I'm getting older, I'm just becoming too much of a curmudgeon and wanting things to do new things. But I think I'm doing my best songwriting now, and I'm most excited about my songs than I think I've ever been in my life, because I'm tapping into this really cool improvisational method, which I think is really beneficial, and it's worth honing, I think. Of course, it's a skill in itself, and you really have to learn how to get out of the way. It's really a tightrope walk, because you have to get out of the way, but you also have to kind of guide it and learn how to trust your ear. You have to know enough music theory to be able to hear something and then play it and execute it in a split second. So it does take a little bit of skill, but it's definitely worth your time, to spend 5-10 minutes a day just improving, and if not hours, just for fun, because it's a blast. And then it's a blast to listen back to. A lot of times you might think that, I didn't get anything good out of that. Because it's going by so quickly, you can't really tell. But then when you listen back, you're like, whoa, that's really cool what I just did in that little section there. So you might get these little gifts. Anyway, so that's an overview of how I was able to write the songs for Fool's Leap of Faith. I'll do subsequent videos on the different songs and how I approach the songwriting of those in coming episodes. Until next time, best of luck to you, and hope your songwriting and spiritual practice grows infinitely in this week. Take care.